March the 8th, 2016. My name is Tanya Finchum. I'm with Oklahoma State University, and today I am in Norman, Oklahoma to interview Betty Douglas Bellis, and this is for our Cowboy in Every County project, so thank you for talking with me today.
It's my pleasure.
Let's start with learning when and where you were born.
I was born May 23rd, 1932. 555 if you're going to shorten it up. And I was born at 509 Blakely in Stillwater, Oklahoma, just north of 6th and south of, somewhat more south of 4th.
Payne County girl.
Payne County girl from the very beginning. Yeah.
And were you born at home?
Yes.
In the home?
I was a family of 4. I was the second of 4. And I was born at home and in this cute little 2-bedroom house.
Is it still standing?
No, I think the last time I saw it, it was some apartments were there.
Okay. And what did your dad do for a living?
My father had bought a grocery store there in the 1920s, and he had the Douglas. It was called at one time it was called the Douglas Douglas. Not Big Country Store, but Cookseys Corner was what its name first was Cookseys, because he had bought it from a Mr. Cooksey in Guthrie, where he got his start at age 10 working in the grocery business. And so I was able to grow big enough that when I was in the 8th grade, I got to start sacking groceries. So you better be careful when I sack groceries because they're heavy. And later the store was changed to Douglas Food Mart, and eventually the store burned down in 1954 on July 31st, and Daddy had a chicken plucking place, which I thought was clever, out on East 6th, which he opened up immediately as the Douglas Big Country Store. For a long time it was there, and then eventually they built a different store, and they sold that's the Hawk Shop right now. Right across from the cemetery. So, and I later got to work I really got to count money back to people, like people should be counted. And I worked on Saturday, almost every Saturday till I got, probably a junior in college.
And did you get paid?
I got paid, I kept a little diary, and I'd go home when I was sacking or even working, and I would write in this little book, January so-and-so, all day, and he was going to pay me $3 a day. But sometimes we just didn't get around to that, but when I needed money, if I wanted to go someplace, take a trip, buy something for somebody's birthday, I could just go to Daddy and say, Daddy, here's my little list. And I need some money, and so I always had my own little bank account to draw from if I needed something, which was nice.
Well, did your siblings work too?
My older sister was extremely clever, but she wasn't very money oriented. My younger sister Judy is a very smart young lady in the money business, and my brother eventually went into the grocery business there in Stillwater. Now has the Douglas Building Center out on East 6th. And so, and I thought it was great because I really liked working with the public and getting to know everybody.
You said chicken plucking
place.
Chicken plucking place. Okay.
During the Second World War, the university had all these military people all over, and they fed them a lot of food. And my father, at the back of his store on Main and 9th, there was where he has his first chicken plucking place. I just thought it was such a cute name. And they cleaned and chickens, and then they sold them to the university because they had to get their food from someplace. And so he did that for all during the war, which was unique because, and when I was in college, on days I didn't have class, I ended up driving wash tubs with ice in it and clean plucked chickens, half probably, and I'd drive into Oklahoma City or up to his store in Ralston and Fairfax. So nobody got sick.
Oh, salmonella.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Well, would you have chicken for dinner at your house?
Oh yes, we ate chicken. We ate a lot of things that were kind of going in the vegetable and the fruit business. In the summertime, when things started going bad, Mother had the great pleasure of receiving the things that were going down, and so we would do some canning or preserving of some of the peaches and from Colorado and all these places, and we all thought that was pretty funny. But we still got something out of it and didn't lose too much.
So I take it she did not work outside of the home.
No, she had worked until she started having children, and I had 3 siblings.
Were they from Payne County, or did they move in?
My dad was born in Guthrie, one of 6 children, and Mother was born in Helena, I believe. Or her family lived in Helena, and then they lived in where southeastern Oklahoma State is now.
Weatherford?
Way down across by the pretty. It's the town that they only.
Woodward.
No, it's way southeast.
Southeast. Ada.
And past that, farther on. This is geography lesson.
Durant.
Durant. The way they all say Durant. So that's where. And and her dad was a politician as well as a landman and stuff. Or not really a landman, but. And so she was born down there, and then they moved back to Guthrie, and my mother was a basketball player and as a semi-pro basketball player in the 20s.
Wow.
And my dad had just gone into the grocery business, he and his cigar, and they just worked fine. And then they got married, and after 4 years or so, then they started having children.
So what was your mother's name?
Her name was Edith Irene Harned, Harned. And she went to OSU 1 year, and then my dad went 1 semester, and that's when his ex-boss from Guthrie came over and called him and said, Glenn, I want you to come down to A24 Maine and look at this place with me. And Daddy finishes a final and in engineering, and he said they went in and looked the store over, and so Mr. Cooksey says, so what do you think of this? He said, well, I don't know, it looks like a good place. He said, I want you to manage it for me. So there entered his college era, and he became the manager, and he was probably 19.
Wow.
And he was a great grocer. He just really loved it.
And he did it for the rest of his
rest of his
working
life.
career?
And I will tell you, if you ever walk through a grocery store parking lot, he spoke to everybody. I don't care whether it's his store or somebody else's store.
A real people person. Huh?
Yes, he was, and a real business person. So,
So what else was going on Main Street there in Stillwater?
well, apparently that corner had been the first bank on the 2nd story. I'm not sure whether it's the first bank. But at one time it was on the 2nd story, it was the first school in Stillwater, and also one of the first churches, which was the Methodist Church. And of course, when it burned in '54, well then we're not able to put another 2nd story on it because it was kind of an old building then, in 30 years, and so we just sold it for. Actually, we kept the store. We leased it for several eating places. There were some cafeterias that went in there, and then some other things. And now I think it's a exercise place. No, what is it that?
It's a karate or
karate,
something like that, taekwondo or something.
Yeah,
like that.
but it's very clean. I've been inside there. I'm very amazed at how clean it is. So yeah.
Well, were you there when the Cats department store there?
Oh yes. Cats department stores probably started in the 1970s, and that was because Mr. Katz had brought a lot of his Jewish relatives out of Germany before the Second World War started. which they were just fine people, always there, and it was sort of the other end of the Main Street, sort of the group we got.
And was there a dairy processing place? That's not
Yes,
how
it
works.
was across the street and to the west. I remember going there as a young girl when we'd go to the Saturday afternoon westerns, and we'd go over there and we'd get a walking sundae. A walking sundae is a cup with ice cream, 2 dips of ice cream in it, and then they would, in the war when we didn't have enough vanilla ice cream, they would put 1 vanilla and 1 orange sherbet, but the rest of the time there's 2 and 2 bits of ice, 2 scoops of ice cream, and then they would pour chocolate on it and put a cherry on top, and that was 10 cents. And we thought that was just about the most exciting thing to do. I did. I didn't care about the westerns, but but my sister was a horse person, so we did. And that was Midwest Creamery.
But why would they call it a walking sundae? Because you ate it as you walked?
I guess it's because we did. We'd buy it and then we'd just walk home because our house was just due west about 1.5 miles. And
Well, was 10 cents hard to come by?
no, it wasn't, because my father gave, at that time, we were beginning to get an allowance. And the allowance was 1/4, when I was in high school, it was 1/4 for Sunday school, 1/4 for stamps, war stamps, and 1/4 to spend as you wanted to. So eventually, for a while it didn't have the extra quarter, but so they were already designated. But we would, but I could save money for it. It was 10 cents to get into the movie and 10 cents to get my walking sundae. So I was very lucky to have had a little, and then I could save a nickel a week. If you're careful, you can save a nickel a week. So.
And do what with it when
Well,
you saved up enough?
Well, yeah, I counted my nickels and dimes every Sunday. I just, after a while, I just like to count how much I had saved in a week, and then if I needed money from Daddy, I'd get some, but didn't really need very much. So,
Would you keep them in a certain place?
oh, I had a cute little bank, yeah. In high school, I was fortunate enough to get $5 a week. And that was pretty good. We felt very fortunate we could do that. But we had to buy by that time they had started a food cafeteria at Stillwater High School. And it cost 25 cents a day, I guess. So I could do that, and then I would have a little bit of money there to do other things. And then they had by that time they had the malt shop on 7th and 7th, just west of Maine, and you could get a really nice malt for 10 cents there. So very good, very good. So I had to be very careful though, you know. And then I started drinking coffee, and I could get coffee for a nickel, so which was fine too. So.
In high school?
In high school, yeah. Let's see, what else did I do in high school? You know, I was a good student. I enjoyed it.
Where did you go to elementary school?
Eugene Field, right down there where then the consumer IGA was torn down, was built after they tore Eugene Field down at 6th and Washington.
Okay.
And it was very nice.
Grades 1 through 6.
Mm-hmm.
And then
7th grade was, we went to junior high, which is at one time what is now the community center was Stillwater High School, or as part of the time it was also Stillwater Junior High, and the school to the south was. And so during my junior high years, and we ended up. I went down there first, maybe in the 7th grade, and then they switched us up to the one on North Duck, or not too north, but just Duck and 9th. And then the next year they switched us back. I don't know. I was sort of in that, which was okay. You know, it's. And then I graduated in 1954,
Okay.
1950, which is always great. It's a good year to remember. And
What was your favorite subject?
uh,
Did you have one?
well, it was not home ec. I can tell you that. All right, they said I've taken all these other courses. I took everything I could, except I didn't take home ec. Then, well, in the 7th grade, you had to take one semester of home ec, and in the 8th grade, you took another home ec. Well, that's okay, but once you do that and you learn how to set the table and everything else, and you're not going to be a home ec person, and you had to make 2 garments, which were ghastly, and I just wasn't going to be a home ec person. So they called me in and said, you're going to have to take 1 year of home ec in the 10th or 11th grade, and I was aghast. I said, I've taken all these other things, and I'm not going to be a home ec person. And so they said, well, they'd just do some checking. They decided that possibly when I enrolled in high school, maybe they had changed their core restrictions, and I probably didn't have to do that. But I'd taken chemistry and physics, and I took all the maths except I did not take geometry. I took geometry, and then 10th grade, and then I took, what else did I take? It was a little different. I took commercial law. I loved that, and I did not take home ec. And so they let me get out of there anyway. And so that's why I value Mary Joyce so much.
Because she does like home ec.
Because she knows how to fix a meal or something.
And the public library at that time was up on...
Across from the courthouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember going in there?
We went there quite a bit. Yeah, we went up there, and I liked that very much. And I was active in the Methodist church. I sang in the choir in high school and college, and so that was fun, nice. And I see, what else did I do? I worked every Saturday.
So what would you do for fun if you're spending your weekends working?
Well, there was always Sunday afternoon. Our family had a cabin at Yost Lake. And at that time, there was no electricity for cabins at Yost Lake. So it was not one of these plush cabin places. We had what we called across the road. And where the 2 little outhouses were, and so we'd have to pump water next door for the cabin next door. We had some shared water there, and so they didn't get electricity until 52 or 3 out there at Yost. So, and then they finally were able to put in some air conditioning. That's just about the time the air conditioning was being evolved and used for homes and other places. It's probably what caused the store to burn because there was such a drain on the grid, and it was happening on a late Saturday night, and it just the power plant couldn't handle it. So,
well, was there a train going to Yost at that?
we had the Doodlebug. It was a 2-car thing. It normally came in on Saturday mornings. It came from up by Pawnee and Glencoe, and we'd go down and wave it down, and about 9 o'clock in the morning, and then I'd get on, and for probably 19 cents, I could take it in to, because I wasn't driving like that at that time all the time, and I take it in to the train station and just get off and walk up the hill to the store and work, and then that evening Mother would take me back out the lake. When we were out there for a couple of weeks at a time. So that was fun.
Very much fun. Different, too.
Yeah, very different, yeah. And we just thought it was about the best thing we could ever. It was very calm, very nice, but just kind of a clean type of living. So, and we didn't have our first television until probably after when I started going to college. I still don't watch it.
So you finished high school in 1950.
Yes.
Did you have a choice on where you could go to college?
I didn't even think about that. I just figured because everybody in Stillwater, if they wanted to go to OSU, A&M. It was, we had $48 a semester tuition, and then you had to pay $7 maybe if you bought an annual, and got maybe something so you could go all the athletic events, which was pretty good, and that was wonderful. So I went to college thinking I didn't know what I wanted to be, so I took everything I wanted to take, which was kind of fun. And my junior year, Mr. White called me in and said, "Miss Douglas, you're going to have to pick a major." Well, why? I'm having a great time taking all these things and that I'd like to know something about. He said, "Well, you're in college for a purpose. You got to get out." So he suggested I maybe take he said maybe, and he was liberal arts, and he said maybe you could do humanities. Okay, well, I'd had 2 courses in humanities, but that's all we had at the time, 2 4-hour courses in sophomore year. So he said that would be fine. So he said, well, and then as you get into because this is my 3rd year, you got to have a major, and we'll have 3 separate aspects of humanities that could be developed more and take 15 hours in each one of them. And since I'd had one year of French as a freshman, and obviously didn't retain too much, I went the 2nd year I did not take French, and so then he says, well, you can do 15 hours of French and 15 hours of art history art history, and then 15 hours of literature. And that was fine with me. I'm just eager. We'll go off. Well, turns out 2 weeks into my French class, as a junior, the teacher calls me and said, "Miss Douglas, when are you going to drop this class?" So I thought, I'm obviously not doing too well here. And so I went back to see Mr. White, and he said, okay, we'll just do the American literature and the English literature. And there were lots and lots of classes. We had some really great teachers. And so I did that, and then I ended up taking 4 semesters of art history and 1 of art appreciation. And so it was plenty. And then I took a lot of English literature and American, and I got out with a lot of hours. That's all I know.
Remember any of your professors in particular?
Name-wise,
Yeah.
Mr. Bailey was the guy who was the French teacher, and I think he had some French background. He actually, I liked him because he told us jokes in French. So, excuse me. We'll see if we could figure out what he was saying. But it was very good, and I had really one wonderful. I cannot remember her name. Red-headed, a PhD from Dublin. Fiery young lady, fierce young lady, and she invited us out one year, our last year of college, senior year, to study for our final. And some young guy, thinking how smart he was from New York, we went out to her house. She fixed us a meal, and she had her rapiers over the fireplace. And so he grabs one, and she grabs the other and knocks him back and knocks it out. And so I thought, good. I didn't like him anyway. But she was just one fiery teacher, but she was good.
What was her subject? Did she?
And it was one of the English novelists, and I cannot for the life of me remember what it was. I'd have to go back and look, which I'm not sure where I'd find it. But she was great.
Did you live at home since you were so close?
I pledged a sorority, Chi Omega, because my feeling was if I lived at home, I would only know girls on campus that might be in my class, but you don't get to become very good friends and who people that I double dated with. I didn't have a steady boyfriend. I went to college because I said I'm going to meet someone. I'm not interested in getting married. I'm too young. I'm 19, 18. Heaven to Betsy. I'm not going to do that. I just want to go meet people. And so pledging Chimega, I got to meet some of the girls. I did not live in the house except my junior spring semester. And I had been elected treasurer, so that way you get to know all the girls because they have to pay you their bills and everything. And that was good, and I enjoyed that. And there were some just really fine young ladies that I still keep in touch with, which has just been a remarkable thing. And I just thought it was the thing to do, and so that was fun.
Would the house participate in home decorations during
Oh yes,
homecoming?
we did, but we didn't do it all. We either had the parade or I'm not sure if we did that. We probably decorated for everything, but not to the extent they do today. I mean, you can imagine that. And
Yeah, it's grown and grown.
it has grown, and it's wonderful because it's really been a special thing for the OSU people.
Well, did you spend much time in the library on campus?
Yes, because the first year I was there was the year that they started. It was a new library, and they kept it open until midnight. And all the cute little girls who lived in the dorms and the houses had to go home at 10:30. Aha! So I could go up to the library, and I could have peace and quiet. And then I'm sort of a night owl, and so I would just to get up and I could study at 11:30 and then go home. And of course it wasn't any problem because we didn't have the safety things that we have today. And so I thoroughly enjoyed that.
And you walk home?
I would sometimes walk home. Sometimes at that time I could have Mother and Daddy. We had 2 cars, and so I could drive myself. And Mother was, or we could make arrangements or something. But I lived, probably straight south on Monroe to Adams, where you just turned west for a mile and a half, for a block and a half, and then our house was right there.
Pretty close.
So it was close enough, and it was safe enough, and I probably knew all the police in town because, I mean, I sold things in the grocery store, all kinds of people. I mean, which was, it was really a good deal.
You couldn't be mischievous or they'd get back to your parents.
Oh
quick,
yes,
huh?
that is true. And then when if I did was really naughty, and the Chimegas thought I should be grounded. Well, that's good because they all had to go back to the house at 10:30, and I could go do something what I wanted to do. But I tried not to do that very often. But it was fun. We had a great group of young ladies, really fine, smart people.
Have dances?
Yeah, they had dances, and I don't have my 80th birthday thing, yes, but yeah, we went to dances and fancy dances and not so, but it was a typical, nice, pleasant life that college people used to have.
Well, would your clothes be store-bought or did your mother make them?
No, my mother was a golfer.
Golf? Okay.
She was a golfer, and as soon as my brother, who was the youngest in the family, got into the 7th grade and he could have food at the school, she took up golfing again. She did golf with Doel and Martha, and so, which was one in her group because they had 10 or 12 or 15 of Norman, Stillwater Ladies Association, I think. And so and on Tuesdays was ladies' golf day, and she always just boiled herself up some eggs, and then they'd go out to the golf course on the north side of town, like Lakeside, probably, because they had just opened that, and they didn't have anything for storage. But they may have had bottled things that in ice places to keep them cold, but they didn't have really fancy things there, and Stillwater Country Club hadn't been built yet. Mm-hmm. So just go out there and they'd just have the best time. And so
did you get to go some?
I took every semester I was in college. I took a PE horse. My older sister having been a phys ed major, and I'm 40 inches taller than she was. Everybody thought I was a PE major, so I just took everything they had, just because I just thought, well, it was simple, it was easy, another A, and And so I did that, had a great time, and I did eventually take off. I made an A in the class, but I wasn't very good as a golfer. So.
Did you have to take swimming? Was it required?
I did take swimming. I tried to take life saving. And I was a person who never wanted their head underwater. And the only way I learned to swim was because I always wanted to do the side stroke. I just want my head out of the water. I said, okay, I'll do whatever. I can stay afloat for years, but I just was not going to get my head underwater. I didn't like it. And so, when I was in fourth grade, we went down to Crystal Plunge, which was just close to the railroad tracks, and that was where they taught lessons. And so I told the teacher, I'm not going to put my head in water. She said, you have to put your head underwater and do the swim over and back. And if you could do that, Betty, I know you can swim. I will give you, I'll pass you on the swimming. And I later then in college tried to take, we did intramural things. We tried to do some intramural swimming. But I just never did like that at all. And later in my life, I ended up wearing not cataracts, but contacts for about 40 years. And I never put my head underwater then, so I thought, now I know why I didn't want to put my head underwater, so very important to me.
The Crystal Plunge, I haven't heard anyone talk about.
Well, you know where the towers are? Okay. Yeah. I thought I had a picture of that, but I don't. On the south side of the of 6th, where you come down curl down from Main and down between the grain elevators. Mm-hmm. Then here's this flat area, and that was where Crystal Plunge was.
Okay.
And it was there I never liked going to Crystal Plunge because their water smelled so sticky and everything, because it had like chlorophyll in it or something, whatever it was, chlorine. And then we swam in Yost Lake, and it might have been dirty, but it was just because it was just stuff in the ground. You know, it wasn't anything bad. So,
was it just a swimming pool, or did it have other things?
It probably had a little park outside, and usually you could go down and take a picnic lunch, which was nice. But it's pretty popular for the people in town. And since we were go out to Yost Lake is 9 miles. It's 6 miles north and 3 miles east of pretty much Washington and Monroe or something. Yeah, yeah. So
when you graduated from OSU in 1954 then, mm-hmm. before it switched names?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Did you have an opinion on that?
Actually, they said I could have offered me a chance to have a diploma from the new school. And I was very stupid. I said no. But if I'd gotten it, I would have had two diplomas for the same degree. I thought I understood why they did it. And the interesting thing was when I was getting ready to come down, my husband and I were getting ready to come down here after he worked on his master's in geology down here. I thought that would be really a nice deal, and then I thought, oh boy, because one of the things that's going to be improved is the guys aren't going to be wearing jeans on campus. Well, that was 1956, because we've spent 2 years, he'd been 2 years in the Army. And I get down here, and that's when all the jean craze came in. I never liked jeans. So I thought that was so funny.
He was in the Army for
2 years. Almost 2 years.
In the 50s. So it wasn't World War II, it was over.
It was after the Korean War.
Okay.
And it was at the very end of the Korean War. It was, in fact, after he went through basic training, and then we went to Camp Gordon in Georgia, and he was sent off to radio school, and they were still doing the Morse code. And then he got through with that, and then they did maneuvers, and they would find out whether they would be going to Korea or to Germany. Well, one of my all-time quests, and the reason I was saving all those nickels, dimes, and all that sort of stuff was, I had decided when I was a little girl, first of all, I was saving my money to go to Idaho. So where Sonia Heaney was ice skating, I could go out and there and learn. That was my first reason I'm saving my money. Second reason was then I got a little bit older and I was 16 and I was driving. Well, I was going to buy a car. And then I was going to do something else, and then I went to college and my art history, so I thought, well, I'm just going to use, when I get out of college, I'm going to, next goal is to go to Europe. So I, very luckily, Bill came home from his, all of his things, this work, the workout they had, and said, well, he said, I'm really sorry because we're going to Germany. We're going to Europe. I said, I'm delighted. I mean, I was pregnant by that time, but that's great. I'll get me a ticket. Because he was a private. He had had some eye problems, so he hadn't been able to go in as an officer. But I said, that's fine with me. I'm just all thrilled about this, and I got myself a ticket, and I actually beat him to Europe because they put him on one of the ships, troop ships, that had to help clean out Camp Dix or something in New Jersey, and they held him back so they could keep doing that. And I got to Europe before he did, so which was fine. I said, I'll just go to Paris, and I'll just get off there, and I'll just spend a couple of days there, and whenever I knew there was this thing called the Red Cross, and the Red Cross can find you anybody in the military, right? Okay. Well, turns out that I found out right before he went over, and I went over, that he was going to Germany. So I went ahead and got a ticket to Frankfurt, where I waited it turned out to be, I was very lucky there too, because I landed at 10 o'clock at night, and I wearing my heels and hose and my maternity dress, and I get off at 10, and I'm waiting for my luggage, and I had this little book, army book, how to speak German, you know. So I'm standing there and I'm waiting for my luggage, and this Air Force colonel, colonel, comes up to me and he says, ma'am, I don't want to bother you, but is your husband going to meet you? And I said, no, he's out in the middle of the ocean on some little boat. And so he said, do you have anybody meeting you? And I said, no. And he said, well, Colonel so-and-so, and maybe he was the major, whichever one, have a driver here, and we are in, not Berchtesgaden, but in the garden spot of Germany, where all of the Air Force, he said, and we have a driver meeting us, and we'd be glad to take you down there and set you up in some sort of housing until you can make contact with your husband, and then you'll be all right. I don't know who they were. I have no idea, but they were there. Very nice.
And you got in the car with them.
And so I got in the car, hey, well, you know, and they drove down there. We drove over to some Depicts hotel, and they go, the lesser of the officers, you can tell I'm not a brilliant army person, went in and told the people at there that to take care of her. She's an American dependent. We take care of all of our dependents, which they did at the time. Give her the GI money that we use over there, and take care of her until she finds her husband. So, hey, I thought that was good, and I didn't have any. They had all these buses that were running around, Army and Air Force, and you needed a way to get off that had a driver who would look at, do you have an AGO card? I didn't know what it was, but I got out my commissary card from Fort Camp in Georgia, and showed it to her. It looked like for sort of official, so I just rode all the buses around and had a great time. So yeah, and then we were over there. Doug was born there, and then we were over there for about 70 months, which was good. We lived on the economy, which was okay. it was kind of like camping out, but that's all right. You didn't have to do it forever, so you could do it for a little bit. And so,
Well, how had you met him, your husband?
well, because all the geology students got together on in the union, and so I would go over, and I was dating one geologist, and then we went meet over there, and everybody else, and then Bill was one of his friends, and ends up I married Bill, but not the other one, and so it was just really nice, and I just got to know a lot of them. And then eventually going into the geological business, and there are just a lot of them that I know, and so that's how I met him.
Did he pin, or when you got engaged, did they throw either one of you in Theta Pond?
No, because they did not. Bill had been a Sigma Nu, but you know what? They wouldn't let him drink all the milk out of the kitchen that he wanted to, so he quit. Don't you love people who have these standards? And I thought that was about the silliest thing I ever heard of, yeah. So and so I thought that was funny. I just kidded him a lot about that.
So he was Bill Bellis.
Bill
Bellis.
Yeah, and he was from Cushing, and
majored in geology.
Geology, and OSU did not have an advanced degree at that time, so they do now. They have a master's. They also have a master's in hydrology that OU does not have, but that's kind of what we had.
So when did you get married?
We got married after he got out of basic in December and went right down to Camp Gordon, which is now a fort. That's why I have to keep thinking about that. And in Augusta, Georgia.
So 1950.
The end of the end of 1954. Yeah. And so.
And how did you end up in Norman?
Well, he couldn't get his master's in Stillwater, so he just came down here. And so he came here, and he got his master's. And then he was going to work on his PhD, and he got a job working in one of the labs. But he never quite finished it, and he just kind of, I think he just got tired of it and everything, so eventually we divorced. And by that time I had not just my child keeping business, but I had started typing. I typed his thesis and somebody else's. It was so easy for me to type. I could not believe how simple it was for me to type. And so I just decided, well, I can start typing, and had a nice little typing business, and then did a lot of books, drafts for a lot of the professors on campus, for the geology people, did a lot of theses and dissertations, and I did that for probably 10 or 15 years. Just was just simple for me. So, and then I started working at the Geological Survey as a computer typist or technical typist. That's when we were still using typewriters, and then we used the first word processor, and then before it was a GE, I believe, and the first mag card. If you ever, how the mag card.
I know those punch cards.
Yeah, but this was something you put in, and you typed 2 or 3 pages on it, and then you could go back in and correct it. So I did that for a long time, and then I just did more and more. So that's why I now have no feeling in my middle fingers because of carpal tunnel. But other than that, I don't need it. A lot of fun.
So you retired from what?
OU, from the Oklahoma Geological Survey,
Okay.
which is
And roughly when?
2009.
So fairly recent.
Yeah. And
Older than 65. You worked past.
I was
60.
75.
You worked past 65.
And that's about the time that Charlie and I got married. He had lost his wife earlier than that, and we talked about getting married. So he was an extremely busy guy, and he just said one time, he said, well, I know we need to get married. I want to. He said, I just don't have time to plan anything. So I said, okay, well, he said, if you find a time, let me know. So he's getting ready to go out to a meeting on Maui. And so and then he'd been inducted into the Higher Education Hall of Fame, and he was going to wear his funny suit, and so he took it back, and I said, we should have gotten married this weekend when everybody was around. So anyway, I just sit down and I call the place where we're going and ask them if we can, what a wedding would cost, and simple. $3,500, and then we would have a gazebo, and we'd have somebody to take our pictures, there'd be a band, and all this wonderful stuff. I said, there's just two of us. We just need two. So they called me back, and I looked online. The first time I'd ever really gone online, I found on Maui there was something called Dream Weddings, and they were $350, and they could tell me where to go. And to get we didn't have to do blood work, and the fellow does say when I'm talking to him, I do assume you're over 18. 3 or 4 times. So when we leave, which is on a Wednesday, we know that on Friday we're going to meet this guy in the lobby, and he'd already said, I'll have an appointment with the lady with the legal stuff. You just get in the cab, go here and get this done, come back, and I'll meet you at 1:30 in the afternoon, and then we'll just have a nice little wedding. He said, if there are too many people on the beach that day, I'll just put you in my old pickup and we'll drive down the road, and which was fun. Turns out there weren't that many people, and so we went out there and we found a giant balsamic rock. And of course, but nothing's more exciting to a geologist than a big oak rock. And so we got married there, and which was just really nice. And then we went back, and as Charlie said, well, no, we didn't have a reception, but all these people who had been out there bathing when we walked by, he was in a suit and I was in a long dress, so they kind of thought something was going on. And they all stood up and clapped for us. So I said, hey, that's a cheap reception. So, but it was really nice. It was good. And you don't need everybody with you when you're getting married like that.
And so when was that?
That was 2007. And then I finished working, and then he got really sick in 2012. And then he passed away.
What was his, Charlie what?
Charles Mankin, M-A-N-K-I-N.
Okay.
I said he actually was a member of the Boone Pickens School of Geology at Stillwater. He'd given some talks up there a lot and everything. So we knew most of the people up there too. So,
how often do you get back to campus?
Not very often, because recently I've just had some leg problems, and first thing that I did was I had to quit driving because I wasn't able to get, when I'd be putting pressure on my leg to drive, I couldn't get above 15 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. And if you're living in the country and you need to get to town, it's pretty scary. So I just found a neurosurgeon, and then I had my back surgery, and I'm now doing much better, but I'm not sure if I'm going to try and fight the idiots on the road. You know, if I have a driver that I've found, that young lady that's good. My son lives here, and my daughter lives in Cedar Park, Texas.
Okay, so 2 children?
2 children, uh-huh.
Did either one of them go to OSU?
No, but Karen's husband did. He was Mark Powers, and he got his geology degree. I think he's a year behind hers. She got hers down here at 83, I believe 82 or 83. And she went to work for Gulf, and that's where she met Mark, but she had also been in other places, you know. The geology world is, you know, there's so many of them, but they kind of have a lot of connections.
It's a busy place right now, isn't it?
It
With
is,
all this drilling going on.
Yeah, so it was very nice. And then since my parents still lived in Stillwater until they died in the 96 or 97. So.
Well, when I came, you were telling me about some house that was close to the hospital.
Yeah, that was our family house.
That was interesting. Can you tell it again?
Yes. The house was built in 1941. It was right before the 4041 and was built by one of the better builders in Stillwater, and Mr. Boyd, his name was, and it had a big basement in it, and one of the few in Stillwater that never has flooded. It flooded one time when they had a 14-inch rain, but he built a really great house. And so my younger sister's oldest boy and his wife, actually my brother got the house to begin with, but then, and he wanted to move it someplace in Stillwater, but the people were heavily involved in some sort of a divorce, not of a location problem or something, and so it just didn't work out. So they thought, well, the hospital would take it, and they would eventually tear it down. So, and what somebody had said they wanted to do with it was to make a Ronald McDonald House out of it, which it would have been a very nice place to do that. But anyway, our Sherry, my daughter, and my niece-in-law, who's just really good with details, took it upon herself. She and one of my son's daughters, Terry, who works on campus, and something in the chemical engineering department, I think. They recently had an article about her in the A&M magazine, she's the one who is involved in the Scottish games.
Okay.
And the picture didn't quite look like her, but I mean it did, because she'd straightened her hair out. Disgusting. But anyway, but it was, so anyway, they got together and figured out, well, that they could move the house. And so Ben had found somebody in Stillwater who would move the house about the time they were doing the village thing. And, but then it didn't happen. I mean, so Sherry and Terry get together and they decide that they'll, and so Sherry calls the guy who Ben had talked to and asked him how much it would cost to move that house. And he said, it can't be done. She said, how much does it cost? He said, it can't be done. So, okay, so it can't be done. So, that's okay, but she's a determined woman. And she called somebody else. They live on the other side of Tulsa. That's where she wanted to move it. They had the property. And they said, it can't be done, but she found somebody over there, what can we do and how can we do it? And so they did, and they took certain parts. They even took our big swing set, which was hysterical. Huge swing set. But they took it over to Jenks, Bixby, I guess it is, and in parts. And then they just took what they couldn't take. They just put it all in there and then covered up with in the basement. So because the basement had been a big rec room, had a playroom in it, and it also had a laundry room in it. So, but it was just, my mother had wanted forever, and she'd always kept little articles, out of different women's magazines and other things she liked. And so it's a gorgeous house.
Had they built it?
They have put it back together in a different way.
No, did your parents build it?
Yes, they did build it. They had Mr. Boyd build it. It had this beautiful front door, and you come in, and here is these steps go up, and they got a nice little banister that curls down here, and you go up four steps, and here's a little square, and then you turn and go up this way, about 10 steps, because I tried to jump them once, and I didn't do very well. They had another square, and then 4 more steps up to the railing, and then all the way around, so you could actually come out from the upstairs. 3 of the girls that were upstairs, you look down and see who's down there, and had a window seat that was just beautiful, and then a bath, and then the 2 bedrooms. So they have had to change a few things, but basically, when you walk up to that door, and you see this door, and then it's the same opening. It really gives everybody a thrill. So it's very clever.
And which lot was it on, Crystal?
It was on the middle of, on Blakely, which is the block behind Adams.
Okay.
Adams is a little short, Monroe and a little short thing to Adams, and then down this way, and then it's Blakely from between 7th and 8th.
Okay.
It was on the east side of the street. And I don't know what's there yet. Now it's maybe just nothing, maybe it's trees. We had a circular drive because it was built on 2 lots. So
And probably built in the 40s? Or
in the early 40s.
Early
40s.
So before the war or during the war?
Before the war had even started. It was before we'd had all the talking and everything. And so Ben said he thought it was 40. I thought it was 41, but I don't care. It makes no difference, But
well, do you have any other memories of Stillwater during that time period, during the war years?
Yes, I do, because as I told you, we had a lot of military people in the old CCC camps over there between 6th and 7th, and that was all empty up down to where the what is the big building at the far end? It's I don't know what it's called because it's changed several times. But anyway, 7th Street is back, and then here we have Adams, and then we have Monroe, and then we have Jefferson. And during the war, Mr. Boyd was out there working on part of our house. And G.I. Jane was a young lady who was in a Cannonball or a Thunderbird 2-seater plane, and they were doing a promotional stunt there. And they come up off of down Washington, when you're down low, they come up to Jefferson, and then they do a barrel roll, and they crash right into the ground, right in the middle of between Monroe and Jefferson, between 7th and 8th. Right there, luckily right there. And it was about, I don't know, noonish or something, and Mr. Boyd, he was part of the defense system, he is gone. And I mean, we're out there, we don't know what's going on here. All these sirens, we see the smoke, and they killed both the pilot and G.I. Jane. But it was the strangest thing, and it really made a very positive, it's just terrible, because here was just this sun, but they either hit something and caught the wing or something. But yeah, that was quite that was probably 42, 43. I really don't know what year that was, but that was a pretty impressive thing. And but during the war in school, when I went to school, one of my little monies was for war stamps. So we'd always take our little money in to 3rd and 4th and 5th grade, and for the war stamps. And of course, then you would put them in a little book until you got up to $10, and then you would get some sort of I think it was a savings bond or something, but you could work up to a savings bond. So we all did that, and that was fine, and we learned all the military songs, which is wonderful. It was just a combined. Everybody was really into the war, and that one was the thing that just really stunned everybody. But I don't know who she was, where she was from, but that was probably 42, maybe 43. So but yeah, that was a tough time. And then I remember Ronnie Bennett. His dad was the policeman, chief of police, and he had to get up one day and get a current event, and it was a pretty gory one, because it was when they put things in the newspaper of what things had been smuggled out, what some of the things that the Japanese had done. It was, and so he gets up and gives this. Of course, little boys like gory thing. But But that's the way, when actually Ronnie was later in the 50s, he was one of the football players. Wasn't very tall, very big, but he was one of the runners. So.
What did you practice, bomb drills or
Um,
something while you were in school?
We probably did. Eugene Field was a brick building, like the old kind. We'd always get out in the middle. And so we weren't fearful. I don't think at all. We weren't fearful at all. But then that's because we're right in the middle of the country, and and we just didn't feel. I didn't feel bothered. I mean, it did not.
Well, being in the grocery business, did you have to deal with rationing?
Oh yes, oh yes. You not only you, sometimes as you're ringing up groceries, you'd ring up the little price with the price on it, and then there would be this other little number, and it would have a circle around it, and that was how many rationing points you had to use. Fruit was particularly high, just awful, because we didn't have fruit. And I don't know why, because I know when I was in the 3rd grade, 4th grade, we had to eat Delano Roosevelt put us on this. He was going to take care of the school children of the world, or and wherever. And for a while, every day at 3:30 or what was it? Temperance Club? No, that was another lady. Some sort of a club, but where we would be given a little sack, make a little sack out of this, and we're going to give you, for a while it was an apple or an orange or something, so we would have proper food. I don't know how that happened, because later then they ran out of oranges, but then and then one year we went to, probably in the 2nd grade, we went to raisins, and so you had to put some. And the teacher said, "No, you got them. That's not enough, Betty. You got to have more." Well, we had them every day, which is kind of so. Eventually, that summer, I got to not feeling very well, and I ended up really getting sick, really sick, and I was not well. And my mother kept saying, "Well, something's wrong with Betty. We don't know what's wrong with Betty, but we don't know what it is, but." And then on Labor Day, they had to take me into the Stillwater Hospital. It had just been built in '39, and the only thing that was open was the labor room. And my appendix had apparently ruptured from we think from all of the raisins that we ate. I had to eat, and then when they got inside, I've been hurting also, I guess all. And Mother kept saying, "Something's wrong with Betty. Our eyes don't look very good." So, but my pain was over here. Turns out, when they found out, when they got inside and operated on Labor Day, both Dr. Smith and our Dr. Wagner, who was the family doctor, and Mother were in the delivery room. And turns out my appendix had burst, and they had entwined in my intestines all around and everything, and they had moved everything over to my left side. Therefore, when they kept saying, this is 1941, she's sick, what's wrong with her? If she's got an appendix, it's over here. No, it's not, it's over here. So I ended up, I did survive. They told me I barely didn't make it, but it was very strange. But I believe it all started in that March and April when we had to keep eating all of these raisins, and I don't even mind them today. But it was just so strange that it really affected.
They expand, yeah.
Yeah, they do. And but I do remember having to think, why do I have to keep eating these things when I really don't think I'm feeling very good? And so, but that's the way it was.
Well, during that time too, campus had waves. Had the waves. That would have been in the 40s, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Have any memories of that?
Of the waves? Yeah, I love their and they lived large. They went too fast. They would say they stayed. I think they put mostly the females in Willard Hall, if you know where that is. That's now a
College of Ed.
Yeah, is that what it is? Is that okay? And then the Murray was a woman's dorm, but they put some of the wax there. And we had people all over the place. I mean, they had all kinds of people, of military people all over the place. And they were well appreciated by the people of Stillwater. And my father had a story of when some sailor had got himself in trouble. He had gotten himself in jail, and then he escaped. And then he was real good friends with the sheriff at the time, and so he ended up in the West Coast. So Daddy and the sheriff and Harley Thomas, who was the guy that had one of the Thomas group, all the Ford on the 6th and Main. So they were going to go out and bring this sailor back. So Daddy says that they get up and they're going to leave on a Saturday night and drive out there and pick up this sailor and bring him back. Well, they do, and they get ready. The first night they leave, it's midnight, and Daddy says, well, he'll drive because our family is wide awake at night. I mean, early night. So he'll drive. And so they hadn't decided how to go. So he just decided he had never been out that way. So they went the north route. And they go out there, and I don't know how long he drives, and then somebody else takes over, and they pick up the sailor, and they come back. Well, they'd never been to the Grand Canyon either. So they came back through, stopped at the Grand Canyon. They were all so excited to get out and see the Grand Canyon. They left the keys in the car and the sailor in the car. And he's not in handcuffs or anything. So they found out later, he said, Stillwater is such a nice place to be. I'm ready to go back. He could have gotten out and taken their car and left them just stranded. But he knew he'd done wrong, and he probably had not had a good life, but he got out. I always thought that was so funny. Yeah, and people at that time, the sailors and the army, and all of the military, would take to, they want to go down to Oklahoma City. Well, they would just get out there and they'd hitchhike. And we never had any problem with the hitchhikers. And not that I would have done that. I don't know, I might have. It depends, but I didn't. But they would pick up the people and take them to the city or bring them home. It was just, and then they would just visit with them, and because these are some of these, Mother said some of these sailors and soldiers are really, they're sad. They're homesick for a family, and they just enjoy talking to somebody else, and so it was, they were well received by the people, and they did all kinds of things, but.
Do you remember when the war was over? Anything
Oh, yes.
specific about it?
When the VE Day was noisy, and my cousin, whose husband she had married while he was in the, before he went overseas, and he was a driver for Patton. And so I remember she's crying. I'm thinking, well, why should she cry? She should be happy. I mean, sort of a strange idiot, but anyway, he finally came back, and then they lived in a little house on Jefferson and 8th. There used to be 6 houses, 3 and 3, and so they lived there while they went to school. He went to school, engineering, and my cousin Janice, who turned out to be a really sharp young lady, took a course in sociology and psychology under Dr. O.D. Duncan, who is quite a name in the sociology business. And then eventually she had taken enough courses that she had her teaching courses. I said, well, I'm going to take your course. And she said, well, you just realize you're going to have to do better than anybody else. Okay, maybe I shouldn't do that. But and then they went off to California, and he got in, I think, working for Boeing or somebody. But had a great life. But they were very nice. I mean, it was good, and it did them so much good. I mean, the war helped so many people with family lives and the money that they were able to find out they could make and support themselves, and it changed. It did so much, even by letting women go to work.
The GI Bill helped education too.
Yes.
The GI Bill.
Yeah, I think it's been amazing what it did.
Well, were you there when the Japanese came to campus? Wasn't?
Yeah,
They do
yeah,
it at
the
same
Niseys. Yeah, I was there. I was probably in college at the time, but yes, I was there, and I don't remember seeing very many of them on campus. But if I'm living at home, I have to walk up 3 houses and then run into them. So and they were up there, but their children are just so cute, you know. You just and I don't think that they got into trouble or anything, but it would be pretty demoralizing to be having to live in a situation where you probably have a much better life. Oklahoma's not a very good place for a garden for people who eat a lot of veggies, and it would be tough for them to try to make a living out of. Well, you look at what that soil was up there. It wasn't very good, and so I don't know how many of them are very irritated at the world, but we can't change that more than anything else. And I don't know if they ever commiserate or help anybody get back on their feet. I don't know what they did about funding them or anything. My granddaughter was saying that she was going to do she was doing a study of the Niseys being brought back, and I said, well, then you ought to check out Stillwater. She said, what do you mean? I said, we had them up there in 1940, probably 5, and she didn't know that. Now, why in the world doesn't the world know that? Mm-hmm. And she was going to D.C. on a discussion group or something. I think it's the stupidest thing I've heard of. I didn't tell her that, but I mean, I'm just thinking, who's hiding all this information?
Well, people just don't think about it.
Probably, they probably don't, and they're gone. I don't know that very many people stayed here, but yeah. So.
Well, you've seen a lot of changes in town.
I have seen a lot of the changes in town, and I've really loved it. I really have. Stillwater is just a really good place.
Will you get into the mix when it's bedlam time?
No. No. In fact, my son is an avid OU person. That's fine. I do not normally read the sports page. I do read to see who's playing, and then I'll put it over here. This is my
recycle pile.
But when I was in college, I went to every game that I could. I went to every basketball. I did not to the avidness of Mary Joyce, because and I went to the wrestling matches. One of the things I did in college that was kind of a fun thing, my friend Wilma, her husband changed her name to Judy, got along real well with Mr. Anderson in the English department. He's probably head of it at one time. And he said, told her we needed somebody to help hand out be ushers for, we have what we call the A and the B classical series, or B is Pops series, and they had people that came in every so often with all these wonderful programs. Mm-hmm. Oh, you did it too. They call them, and one's classical, one's, but after a while nobody went to the classical ones, and so they kind of dropped that one. And they don't do, and now they put the Pops in some screaming Roy Noble or something, and you know how bad that stuff is. But anyway, we were paid $1.50, I believe, to usher for the classics or the other series. And we went to let's see, we had, I have to think what this, we normally did pack, we took care of everybody that came in, but most of the time, they never ever filled it for the classical series. But one year they did have the people who performed. Got to think of what this giant movie was, where there was a Captain Queeg, who was the and he was always knobbing together some metal balls or something. It was Mr. Roberts was what I think it was called, and Henry Fonda was the commander, and I can't see who the other person was. But anyway, that was held in the basketball field, Gallagher it was, Gallagher Hall. And that place was, you'd never believe how quiet it could be. Because it had to do with an event. This Captain Queeg was this brutal guy. And, but it was, no noise, not at all at times. You could have heard a pin drop, and that place is full of people. It was just kind of eerie. And, but yeah, so we seated people, we had certain people sitting on the floor, and so we'd take them to their seats, and then all the balcony and everything was full. But it was a spectacular performance, and it was right after. And it was something about it's something that happened in the South Pacific, and Mr. Queeg was Captain Queeg or whomever he was, and it was just an outstanding thing. But to get that whole place where nothing was happening and everything, I was very impressed, and then they had another couple of things that were really good, and we used to have dances in Gallagher Hall. We had Tommy Dorsey and Jimmy Dorsey and some of the big bands, which was wonderful, and everybody enjoyed it. And the only thing I didn't like about it was because that stupid guy from New York who had limited them to he's out of New York. He's the guy that runs the music. What is his name? Not Omni. Anyway, he limited. They had to play 20 minutes. And then they had to stop for 20 minutes, so that the musicians wouldn't wear out. Now that's pretty good. That's the guy from New York who ran the what do we call it?
Only thing I think of is Juilliard, and that's not.
It's not. No. It's the legal part of it. And he also is. They have their own. The musicians have their own. Whatever they are. I'm very much against organizations that tell you what you can and cannot do. And so I got to do that every semester for probably second semester or junior, maybe even sooner, just to be able to help people find their seats, and then of course we'd get to sit and get in all the performances themselves, which was I thought was pretty good, and some of them were probably not as full, but they were pretty good. So we got to see both good A and B series.
So you did have a little fun.
Had a lot of fun. Got paid a little bit, $1.50. I also, in my fourth year of spring semester, Doel Reed, who is the gentleman who was in charge of the art department. And of course, I'd been up there for 4 semesters of looking at all the different slides for everything. And he knew me. His wife worked at the bank, and he said, "Betty, would you like to be interested in modeling for one of our evening classes?" He said, "It's a class of mostly Stillwaterites, couple of doctors, Bob Manning, who had a construction store, some other people, just people, older people who come in and then they want to draw. And I said, oh, well, I don't know, $1.50 an hour, that might be okay. So I was telling my daughter, and she said, I hope you wore clothes.
That's what I was thinking too.
I said, well, I was taking modern dance that semester, so I had a leotard. I didn't ask, and he didn't say, but I thought I better wear the leotard. Nobody said, take it off, take it off. But I really enjoyed it, and it was really nice, and so I did not embarrass the family. But it was really a lot of fun. But I had never done anything like that, and so it was until some guy comes up and says, you know, your thighs are very much like the night and day, and Michelangelo, or is it the one that's anyway said, and I thought, oh dear. Those are big thighs. maybe I better go exercise a few more. That was funny. So yeah, but
Doel Reed, I think he did aquatents.
And he did all of the workout in Tucumcari, or where is it? I'd like to go out to the center.
And Taos.
In Taos, yeah. I would like to do that.
Well, they had a daughter, Martha. Did you know her?
Yes, I did. She was a Chi Omega, but Martha, she had a middle name. We called her Martha Lou. She was my cousin's age. Lee, Martha, and that. She's the one that invented the broomstick skirt, and I think her mother worked in the bank. I think so. But I did know them also, and they were very, I mean, everybody was just all small town, so.
Yeah, I think they had a home in College Heights, is that right? College,
Oh,
you know, where
College Circle.
Over there somewhere.
Called College Circle. We went back up off of what we called at the time College Avenue, and now it's University Avenue. Yeah, yeah. And I can't remember, her mother was a little bit red-haired. He didn't have much hair. I think I was just thinking that, yeah, and but she was about 6 years older than I. And but I didn't know she was the inventor of the broomstick skirts. But I did cut out her obituary when it was in the paper sometime back. But I thought, that's intriguing.
Well, who was the president of the college when you were there? Do you remember?
To begin with, it was Dr. Bennett. I was there when Dr. Bennett and his wife were killed in the plane crash in Ethiopia. My mother knew them from Durant, and then Dr. Willham, and I understand Diana calls him Willham, but we called him Dr. Willham, and his son Richard was in my high school class. He was one of the smart guys. When I was a junior in high school, I took a physics class, a 6-hour physics class, and there was Richard Willham, Ed Tingley, who was one of the sharpest gentlemen I've ever had at that time, to know, and then Jimmy Patterson, who was one of the best goof-offs around, and then another girl of mine. And it was because 6th hour was the hour when it was football. And Richard had later played end on the football team, but and I can't believe his mother let him play, but she did. And he played for a couple of years, I think just as an end. I remember seeing him catch the ball, and he was really good looking. And he was I was treasurer of the student council. He was secretary of the student council. And George Kennedy, who didn't live too long, was the president, and somebody, so, yeah. But Richard and I were really good friends, just good friends, you know. I really did. He was just one of my very, very best friends. And Ed Tingley was this guy that was so smart. I don't know how he got his smarts, but and then he the day that he graduated from Stillwater High School and went off, he was going to go do a summer job at one of the fireplaces up in Idaho or someplace, and he was going off to the Navy. He had an appointment to the Navy, like Naval Academy. And they had a big fire up there, and he had been working the fire, and he went back up to his station, and he collapsed and died before he could get back up to his station, which was, well, I just kept thinking, what an absolute waste, because he was such a fine, smart person. He didn't appear in Stillwater High School until about maybe a sophomore. So, but. He was just another one of my really just great, because we had such a good time in the class.
With us, less than 10 people, you'd have.
That's right. And Mrs. Johnston, her husband was a chemistry professor at OSU A&M, and she was a high school, and she was a cute little yellow blonde lady. And first day of class, she says, I'm going to call the roll. There's 6 of us. So she gets down to Edison, and she says, Ed. What does Ed stand for? Well, he says, Ed. Every day for 2.5 weeks, she asks him every day, you know. So what does Ed stand for? Edison. Oh, he didn't tell. I don't know how he. I mean, we would just be rolling on the floor and everything because she was so sweet and so determined and everything. But he was great. But Richard was in there, like I say, and then Martha Ballin and Jimmy Patterson, and it was a very memorable class. And then the day that that's when all of the people were coming back from the war. The veterans were coming back from the war, and so we got the education, the teachers who were learning to be teachers, and so they come in this one time, and we were going to have a test, and so that's good. I'm going to go say that my sister had been quite a modern dancer, and she was on campus that year, and they were having a performance that evening. Well, that's fine, and so but I go up to the college auditorium. I'm sitting there and I'm studying away, and this guy sits next to me. Said, "Oh," I say, "You're studying physics." I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "Well, what do you?" I said, "Well," I said, "I've got a test tomorrow. I've got a test, and I've got this teacher." And he said, "Well, who do you have?" And I said, "Well, he's a student teacher." And I made a few comments, and he said, "How's he doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm learning a lot," because he really was showing us the equations, and he was really good. And he was probably 26, 28, and obviously married, lived in Veterans Village, and so he said, "Well, you know, I'm the professor teaches that takes class for these students who are learning to teach. How's he doing?" And I said, "Well, he needs better grammar." So I'm thinking, oh dear, well, what have I done for that poor boy? But he needed better grammar, you know. And so I don't know if the teacher finally told him, or I just thought that was kind of funny. But I didn't want to ruin because he was a great teacher. I just really learned a whole bunch from him. So yeah, didn't want to blackmail him or anything. But I did say the next day, "I hope I get a good grade because I talked to your teacher last night." It's not only bad. So we had the advantages of having all the good and bad, That's one of the things Stillwater High School had. All the good and bad teachers, they were trying to learn to be teachers.
Well, you mentioned when they come back from the war, there were jeans or not jeans
They were all in khakis.
when they came back.
They came back. And,
Well, before, was it all jeans?
well, see, I dated one of the guys I dated 3 deans one year, my freshman year. One was Dean with blue eyes, who was a forestry major. One was Dean, who was a football player, and he was from Woodward. And really good looking, really good. And then there was another dean that I knew through the church who had beautiful blue eyes. And he'd sit in the car when I'd take all the kids back. I had a car, other people didn't. Take them back to the dorm after Sunday night services. And he turned out to be a geology major. So, but most of them wore either khakis or they wore jeans. But the forestry majors are the ones that I noticed wore jeans the most. Mm-hmm. And I didn't ever date anybody that I know of that was a agriculture major. I just didn't. Well, I obviously didn't have any classes with them. You know, you just certain kind of classes you have with people, but.
You have a great memory.
Yeah.
Remember all of this.
I had a wonderful time. I was just there, and
There was a group about that same time led by Alexander. Is that a musical? It was music. He did things with music.
oh yes, from Honey.
Yeah, I can't remember but his last name was Alexander, wasn't
And
it?
it was the Alexander family.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they did a lot of performing around the state.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And one of the young ladies who played the marimba, the xylophone or something, was a Stillwater girl. And they had an accident. And I'm trying to think of her name. And a couple of years after I left the university, they had an accident, and her marimba or xylophone was in the back of the car, and when it came forward, it decapitated her.
Oh my.
And she was a Stillwater girl, and I know, and I can almost tell you who she is. I can't quite remember, but yeah, but they entertained Rotary clubs and other people and all. Just really fine people, and the whole family was good. So I always thought how sad that was. Who would think about having to stabilize it? Yeah.
Well, that was the days before seatbelts too, I guess. And
Yeah.
Not that would have made a difference either.
They didn't have seatbelts, so I was living in Norman and in my second university housing.
Well, speaking of Norman, do you consider Norman home or Stillwater home?
Well, for my children's sake, since they both are Norman High graduates, and both of them are OU graduates. Although my daughter Karen, went back to UCO and got a degree in dietetics when she decided that this business with geology is, as we have seen, all the time. So, her husband is retired now from Statoil, and so she's probably not interested in going back to school. But they're very simple, and they've followed the Dear Dave Ramsey plan, and they have paid their house off. So, for somebody who's 56, I think that's pretty darn.
That's very good.
Yeah, very good. And they're taking some trips now, but I don't. Well, the problem has been this. I said, so what are we going to do with me? And Karen said, well, she and Mark plan to do the naturalized in-ground service, or just where you just deteriorate the ground. Fine, that's a good way. Yes, I am. And so I asked Doug, and I said, and then I was talking to the lady here who came in one day. She said, well, but now, Betty, you said you're an organ donor. I said, oh, well, I don't have to worry about where I'm going to be buried. Good. My parents are buried in Stillwater. I love Stillwater. I look at all the people who die in Stillwater, all the other information, and but there are not a lot of even my friends that are there. So as long as we can, if nobody's upset about something, I don't care. Get right down and do it, you know. So it's not something. I guess some families are very much against it, but you can build a mountain out of a molehill a lot of times. It doesn't make any difference. Yeah. We're not that concerned, I don't think so.
But you've spent more of your life here.
Here now.
Here.
I was there 24 years. And
Stillwater's still probably home.
yeah, it is. Basically, I love the campus, and I like just being able to go up there. And my daughter took me up to OSU a couple of years ago. We had my Chi Omega class met. There were 18 of us that were still alive, and a couple classes ahead and behind us. But that was a lot of fun, and it's changed a lot. But you know, I don't care. I'm happy with it, and our store's changed, but it's not exactly. We've decorated it up. Yeah. So.
Why did you have to do that? I mean, what did you have to do in order to get to do that? The mural.
Oh well.
Just fork over money, and that was it.
No. Well, they were talking about it, but we'd seen some of that. People had done that, and Bob Palmer from UCO, who's an art professor, he had done some murals in Hominy, in Cushing. He's done some in Norman since then, and they're gorgeous. They're good, and what they do, and we got to put together the things that were sort of important to us, and then they kind of set it out. My sister said, Doris Ann was still alive at the time, they came in, he brought his students in with him, and they planned what they were going to do. And then they came in one Saturday at night or Friday night, and they projected on our south wall, which is pretty big, and they drew on the lines. And the next day they went back and they painted it all, which was just really intriguing. And so I think it'll last quite a long time. And we were tickled. The only problem that the family had, that my sister had, or somebody said, there were 4 children in our family. And in the picture, there's mother with 3 children. And so we don't know who's been left out. It's not worth worrying about, but it is kind of an interesting thing. So
I'll have to drive by on my way home and take a look. I mean, I've seen it before.
Yeah, but you have to sort of study it and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wondered what the Cooksey connection.
Well, the Cookseys Corner. When Daddy was 8, 9, and 10, he said when he first started out, he was bottom of 6 children. He would get up and in the morning he'd go buy a nickel hot dog. And then, and he had papers, he's going to sell papers. And he's this little dinky, scrawny kid, I'm sure. And he would go buy and he'd sell 1 hot dog. He got 2 hot dogs for a nickel at that time. So he would sell 2, he would eat 1, and then he would sell 1, and then he would have enough to go buy some more. And so he's 6 or 7 or 8, I don't know. And then, as he got older, he figured out that, he said, you could always sell something. He said, I bought. And then he would meet people, and then he'd sell them another hot dog or something. And of course, we weren't worried about anything clean because everything was just like the world was, you know. And then when he was 10 or 11, he'd go into the Mr. Cookseys store, whose name was Ben something Cooksey. He'd go in and well, he noticed that he needed to straighten up his cabinet. You know, how some people they're empty and move stuff up. He said, you could always make a job for yourself. So one time when he was some age or something, Mr. Cooksey said, hey, would you like a job? He said, I sure would. And so he started working for him. And then he worked for him all during high school and all, and so it's just wonderful. And that's probably what saved a lot of people. And so I just think it's a hoot. So my brother, who was the bottom of the three girls, his middle name is C, and it's Cooksey. He's Ben Cooksey Douglas.
Ah.
So that's where and we all laugh about that, but and during the war, when bananas were hard to get, some other fruits were hard to get, and Hershey bars, the nickel little Hershey bars, this long, were very hard to get. Daddy would always go over to Guthrie on Sunday afternoons. And my brother Ben would come back with arm here. You'd have a whole box of 24 of those nickel Hershey bars and some bananas. Now my brother Ben likes bananas. He likes Jell-O. He does not like Jell-O with bananas in it. So he was a spoiled brat. I've told him many a time. and so he would, I never can mix it, but he'll eat them individually, so, which is really kind of funny. But he's very, my brother Ben is very active in Rotary. And so my father was a Rotarian for 67 years, perfect attendance and everything, so he's, and that's why on that thing there is a giant, huge Rotary symbol on the side. I said it looked like the sun. I just laughed. But Daddy was a very strong Rotarian. He was always giving out their little card, you know, the 4 rules of Rotary and everything. So he's very avid. So.
Well, did your brother share the candy?
Not very often. But you see, I sat next to him at the table. On our Sunday table dinner was Mother at the top and Daddy at the bottom, and I'm over there, and Ben's to my left, and Judy's the youngest girl, and she's sitting here, Dorsan's over here, and if he didn't sit up straight, my fork would jab him in the back. He needed to learn how to sit up, and he still loves me.
So you all sat in the same spot every time?
Yeah,
all the time?
that was just our Sunday dinner, because Daddy was so busy working. He did not really, most of the time he would come home and have lunch before we did, because we had different lunch hours for a while. And so Daddy would want to come home and eat first, and then he would lie down in front of the radio and listen to the news. Because he wanted to hear the news, and that way he didn't have to put up with us. But he was really a good dad. We laughed about that. And
well, who would discipline if you got into trouble?
well, most of the time it was Mother did first, but if you really were bad, then you had a session with Daddy. That's all right. So,
A session would involve just being talked to, or what do you think?
only how bad you'd been. So, yeah. I really pushed him several times. But one time, I was probably 7th or 8th grade. I was going through my Russian period. And so I was, reading Popolov and Popolov and Sister Popolov and all they put up with me for so. This one Sunday dinner, we had a really nice dessert. Mother always had nice desserts, and so I said, cheerfully, I'm sure, "Hey, Ma Popolov, would you just toss me a piece of cake?" Another piece of cake. And he reaches out there with this fork, gets it right underneath it, and goes, and it goes, bloop, 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 plop, right in my plate. One up for Daddy. He just shut me up real well. So, and everybody loved it because they thought that was pretty darn crazy. But yeah, so we did survive though. Yeah, so which is the only way to do. And then, but when you travel with him, well, he would always tell you things that you needed to know. And on Saturdays when I would work with him, he would say, we'll go home for lunch. And he'd say, now Bets, he called me B-T-S. Today we've got some more, we've got this kind of peaches, that kind of stuff. kind of talk to the client, to the people who are here, and remind them of some of our specials. On the way back, it would be, you need to be nicer to your mother. Don't be so rude to your mother. And so Mother knew I was just mostly kidding, but he was very definitely behind her. So we knew who really, and he would tell people later on, most of the time he'd say, your mama is the one who takes care of the house and you all, and she has a harder job than I have. And of course he'd be gone 10 hours a day and everything, but it was just, he had tremendous respect. Mm-hmm. And he didn't, after he quit playing, he played baseball, men's baseball with his cigar, because they accused him of having 2 bats. So he would, we were supposed to be very respectful to Mother, but I always thought that was pretty funny when he'd just chew on me about, you need to be nicer to your mother, and we quit telling her about being old and stuff. I'd buy her books that are silly books about getting older, and he thought that was probably not nice, but anyway, she loved her golf, and he quit playing golf. He had played golf for a while, but he didn't take it up anymore. He actually just let her do it, and he was so thrilled when she did well in the golf. It was just, he just supported her, and that was, it was just really wonderful, you know. He just really enjoyed that, so.
Did she get any hole-in-ones?
Yes, I think she did. Someplace.
That's always important.
It is, and she played later. She played at the Stillwater Country Club. They bought a membership out there after a while, and we used to go out there and have dinner quite a bit, and really nice. And so it was just a wonderful. We just had a really good time with everybody. The whole family got along real well. Somebody said, well, I said, if they would not have this word siblings, people would get along a lot better. We weren't allowed to be siblings. You know, we don't do that. We get along. You all work it out. You get along. It's fun. We don't. I said, if those psychologists would shut up, we will get along. So.
Well, was it hard leaving Stillwater? Thinking when you moved away, thinking you probably would never come back to live?
No, because I knew that I'd be back enough. With at that time, 2 sisters were living there.
To visit.
Yeah. And so my older sister, I would always go back, and when she moved back to take care of Mother and Daddy, they both had lost their eyesight with macular degeneration. She came back to stay with them and take care of them. My job then was self-appointed, to pick her up in Stillwater and take her to events, because I go to a lot of events. I go to the Philharmonic and Oklahoma City, and I go to the classics and the pops, and I go to the celebrity attractions, and she, having been a dancer, loves that kind of stuff. So I would get her, make sure my brother would help, my sister would help, bring her down here on the weekends and put somebody else in to help take care of Mother or Daddy in Stillwater, so that she would have a nice break. And she was a smoker, which was not always a good thing, but she was, and made sure she had enough money to have cigarettes and cream for her coffee and butter for her bread, because those were the things that were so important to her. And I said, you know, that's fine. She should have given up smoking, we know that, but she didn't. And it's probably what killed her, but she said she knew that, but that's fine, because it was her choice.
Well, did the other 3 go to OSU? That grade?
My brother went for 2.5 years. He was a Kappa Sig, very active in the Kappa Sig alumni group, and Judy and her husband went to became an electrical engineer up there, and So she did real well. Harv did real well. And then Judy and my older sister had 6 children. I had 2. Younger sister Judy had 4 boys and 1 girl. And then brother Ben, had 3 girls and 1 girl and 3 boys. And Terry went to OSU, and her oldest. So Terry went. One of his only daughter went to OSU, and his oldest boy eventually went through the fire department, fire protection. And Ben will tell you, if you want to get a degree, where you'll 99% of the time you can get a job, that's what you go into. Because now he has his oldest son. He has 3 children, and all 3 of them are in the fire protection. Yeah. So he is and he keeps chewing on his other children for going to school. Yeah, he didn't quite finish because by that time he and his wife were married, and they kind of quit. But his second son is a nurse. He actually got his degree came from he's got a master's from UCO, I think, in nursing, and he is a nurse in the I think in maybe someplace in Kansas. Got his master's in that, and he is a nurse and he's in Colorado. My older sister eventually got herself a degree. She had left here and gone up to Colorado and did well. She had 6 children, and then she got rid of her oath, and then so we and then she taught school. She got her degree from Greeley and she taught there. So I'm very proud of her for that. She just wasn't going to she was going to be a phys ed teacher in the 9th grade, but she wasn't going to college. So we think that's kind of clever. So, but that's okay. She found out later she needed to do that, but she was a foster care girl for a long time, but she did get her teacher's degree, and then she had a foster home up in the mountains for really bad boys. And
Takes a lot of patience.
Yes, and she's this tall. She's little, but she said one time she had a new boy in from Denver, and she had 6 boys in one room and 6 in the other, and she goes in, she thinks there might be some shenanigans tonight. The first guy comes in, and she goes in there, and she knows something's wrong, and she sees one of them is down, crouching down on the ground. She goes over there and cups him under his chin, and hits him so hard he rolls clear across the floor, and of course gets everybody attention, and she never had problems with him anymore. So, okay, I won't worry about you. But yeah, she had quite a life, but she wouldn't give up smoking, so that's what happened.
That's what happens. Yes.
Yeah. So, but she was a hard worker, wonderful cook. My sister Judy's a wonderful cook, and somebody asked me what kind of food do you like, and I said something that somebody else has fixed.
Again, not home ec.
Yeah, is that home ec? But you see, I was the middle girl, and I was working on Saturdays, so here they are having to do I knew how to clean. We all learned how to clean, but I didn't need to clean or cook because I'd be off working. So I thought it was a pretty good deal.
And supper was waiting on you when you got home?
Sometimes, or I'd go out for dinner. You know, in college I went out for dinner a lot, so I just thought that was pretty funny. So, yeah.
A pretty good life.
Very nice, very nice. And somebody asked my daughter-in-law said, she said something to Doug once, and and she said, I understand your mom used to be a pretty good cook. I said, well, yeah, I was, but why should I do it now? Yeah.
So you've lived in Norman
Since 1956.
since 1956.
Yeah.
So has it changed a lot too? In that, I mean, I'm not familiar at all with Norman. Has it changed?
Norman is a very good place for children to grow up, for people to go to school. They have a good education program. I've been really pleased, and I've enjoyed working with most of the people at the university. My jobs have always been where I really didn't have to put up with them. It never really bothered me. I wasn't too involved in a lot of the politics, because working with the survey was a different entity from the, it used to be a total different budget than the University of Oklahoma, which is much better. But now it's kind of part of the university, and of course all kinds of things that go on there, as we know, it's not good. But you have too much regimentation and all sorts of stuff, so.
Grant funding and various different ways of getting funded. It gets complicated, I know.
And all of what you can get done and who you have to fight, it's picky. One of the OSU professors had written a story, a novel, about 30 years ago. I'm trying to think what his name was. But it was very interesting about the politics of the universities, and yeah. So I try not to get involved in that. I'm just glad that I'm not in it. So it's just gotta have some control. But when Charlie was Charlie worked with 7 governors, and so as the head of the Geological Survey. So when you get 7 governors, and different kinds, and different ones, and what they do. But his was a state event, and so it's been very interesting. And I can say right now, I'm pleased for him that he's not alive. That it would be a terrible time for fighting for the money that the state has to give you, and he did a lot of work on the national level, and it would be a terrible time to be involved in all that right now.
Did he have a favorite?
Actually got along real well with David Hall, even though David Hall's the one that went to prison.
Oh.
Yeah, he would listen to him. You get some that don't listen to him. David Walters didn't, and
What about Henry Bellman?
well, he loved Henry. Henry was good, and Henry Bellman was going to be signing his autobiography. It was the day I got my hair done. Oh dear. So I knew where it was going to be, and I called up the bookstore out here in the mall, and I said, the guy kind of recognized my voice. I hadn't bought very much in there, but he just recognized my voice, and I said, when is Bellman going to be there today? And he said, well, I said, oh, I've got to get my hair done, and I was hoping to buy a book, and I wanted to dedicate it. He said, well, tell me who you want it made to. And so I said, well, Charles Mankin. And he said, and I said, I'll be there probably after 2:30. And so he did. And it was the nicest thing. Thank you, Charles. I've enjoyed working with you and all this. What a nice thing. And I just thought, isn't it good that you go in and you bother somebody and then they kind of remember who you are? Yeah. And that was probably, I don't know how many years ago, but yeah, he really enjoyed Henry, because he was so open. And
He's a good part of Oklahoma history.
yeah.
Bellman's
Yeah.
contributions.
Yeah, we are so lucky to have some people that are really good. We just keep hoping. Yeah.
I think we've covered a lot. Is there anything
We
else?
have probably way too much than what you wanted, but
No, it's been great. Is there anything else you want to add before we close?
all I can say is I've watched OSU grow. My husband said that the reason they changed their name is it was the year after I graduated. And but he was a University of Texas grad, so three times. So we thought that was always funny. Yeah, she went to the University of, he went to OSU, and then they changed her name. Yeah.
And then they booted you out of the county.
And they booted us out. That's right. So it's all it is. But I've enjoyed the group here. I think they've done a really good job, and we like that. And there are a lot of interested people, and I don't remember them all, but I had some really going to school with good people, and they're nice.
And OU fans don't give you too hard of a time?
No, in fact, the reason that we live out in northeast, because I'd gone one semester in my junior year, between junior and senior year of college. I had gone to University of Colorado for some more English literature and a Shakespeare course and something else. My friend Wilma Beckman, who was from Kingfisher, and that's pretty darn OSU-ish out there. And so that's just fine with me. And we go out there, and this is the year. It was the older game was the game before OU lost the first time to Notre Dame. And the tickets that we had, that Bill and I had, were 2 rows down from the top of the stadium. And I was going. I've been trying to be nice with a mouth shut, but I wasn't. And at the very last, right before, and it's tied up, and then I guess OU does something, and they win the game. And right before, and it's all very quiet, I say, "Go, Colorado!" And so that night we were at a party, and one of my good friends, Tanya from Oklahoma City, her husband was an engineering student from OU, and I always said he was going to learn how to as an agricultural student, he's going to learn how to electrify all the barns, and so he was the engineering guy here. So he said to me, "Betty, I've just got to tell you, I was ashamed to say I knew you." I think that's enough. I guess I shan't do that ever again, and I won't go to any more ball games. And the only time I went was a couple of times when it was really cold, and we had some different seats, and we went, and OSU beat OU, and it was cold, and so I just sat there quietly. But it was so. And my son is so avid. He's just wild, and so it's good for him to go and enjoy it, and so yeah, I just think it's funny. Yeah, a game's a game.
Pretty much, at the end of the day. Yes.
Yeah, at the end. Yes. So I was very proud of them. I'm proud when they do well, and hope they do it all the time. But it doesn't bother me.